Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, I've got a lot of things that I'm working on right now. I've got a lot of different content that I'm trying to put together. But for today, we're going to be talking about this and maybe something else because I might push out something else later. But this is definitely something we need to talk about. Obviously, everybody right now is kind of caught up in what's going on with OTAs. Everyone's kind of caught up with the fact that, Hutch is back, team activities are starting. The season's kind of now almost getting to a point where it's like, hey, we're no longer waiting on news. We're no longer trying to figure out what's going to happen. Now we're actually seeing things happen. Now we're actually knowing, hey, this is what's kind of been going on behind the scenes, so to speak. One of those things that has been kind of going on behind the scene and people have been kind of talking about, trying to figure out, is what's going on with certain players that is not necessarily related to a health issue, but rather what is related to money issues, contract issues. I know some people have asked me to talk about, what's been going on with Alex Anzalone. My thoughts on him, the whole fact of, why he's not been showing up and, all the stuff that's being talked about him in regards to him being unhappy with his contract. And I'll say this. I definitely wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to just do a one singular episode about that because it's like, okay, one contract issue, one contract dispute, that's one thing. But when you have two, now it's more than just a one-off. Now it's more than just, okay, one person's not happy. Now we actually have two people that are reportedly not happy with their contracts. And I'm not saying they're mad. I'm not saying that something bad's going on with inside the Lions organization. I'm just saying that there are two players now that have been reported that are not happy with their current contracts. Obviously, one of them is Alex Anzalone. But the second person is somebody that I was not expecting that was going to be the case, and that's center Frank Ragnow, Frank the Tank. And let me tell you something. Like the title of my show is for today, when you consider all of this information that's now coming out, it now makes absolutely perfect sense why the Lions have done things the way they've done them this offseason. And I've said this multiple times before. There is never, ever, ever a reason that the Lions do not do something. There's always something that is saying, hey, we can or we cannot do this. The Lions do not just make moves half-hearted. They don't make them foolhardily. They don't make them, half-baked. Everything has to be done for a reason, and that reason has to make sense. What exactly am I talking about in regards to that? What I'm talking about is the entire offseason. All anybody wanted to talk about was how the Lions had to make a trade for a big value, big contract kind of edge rusher. Whether it was Myles Garrett, whether it's still Trey Hendrickson, and a couple of other people that have been brought up over the entirety of this offseason. And then there are other people that are like, oh, well, what about bringing back, Zadarius Smith? All these are conversations that have been brought up, and every single one of them all inevitably leads back to the same question. Well, how much is it going to cost? Because as we all know, money's what makes the world go round. And when you talk about the Lions, it's not like they don't have money. They do have money, but they have to be smart with how they use that money. Well, it's kind of hard to use that money in a smart manner when you have people inside your own organization that are not happy with the current contracts that they have. Because let's think about this here. Trey Hendrickson going to be a really big, kind of absorption of all the money that the Lions have. When we were talking about Myles Garrett, another one that was going to be that way. Now, Zadarius Smith, probably not. But it makes no sense for the Lions to try and bring him back at the current moment when you've got two players that currently are stating, hey, I'm not happy with my current contract. I'm not happy with what I'm getting paid. I believe that I've earned more. So now it's like, okay, what do we know about the Lions? The Lions have always stuck to this exact same principle. They are going to take care of those that are inside of the building, those that they believe have earned their right to be there, earned their way to be there first, before they take care of anything else. Very seldom do they ever do anything opposite to this, whole process. Well, when you think about it from that perspective, and you take a look at Alex Anzalone, you take a look at Frank Ragnow, these aren't just two little, individuals that, the Lions could do with or without. It's not something like that. Alex Anzalone is the captain of the defense. Now, Jack Campbell could probably take over for that role probably by the end of this year. If not, he's almost pretty much at that point anyway. But Alex Anzalone is still an integral part of this defense. He's still considered the leader. He's still considered the captain. This is the guy that everybody kind of looks to for answers when he's out there on the field. And then when you take a look at Frank Ragnow, the same kind of, importance is placed there as well. Frank Ragnow is considered the anchor of that offensive line. He is the guy that makes sure the offensive line is in its right protections. He makes sure that the offensive line is doing their job. He's the one that works with Jared Goff as far as, hey, you know what? Do we have the right protection? Do things need to be adjusted? These are two guys that are extremely important to the Lions as far as the value that they provide, not only to the team overall, but also to the actual overall dynamic of the units that they're on. Frank Ragnow and Alex Anzalone, they're not just captains of their individual units. You might as well call them captains of the whole team. I mean, Alex Anzalone has been voted as a captain before. I don't know if Frank Ragnow has, but he sure as hell could be. These are two guys that are absolutely instrumental to this team. You do not want to potentially lose them, and you sure as hell do not want them out on the field, especially if it's over a contract dispute. Which then brings me back to the whole issue of what I was talking about earlier. When you have guys that are in the building that, let's understand something here, Dan Campbell has stated it in the past when he was talking about when Taylor Decker was wanting a new contract. Taylor Decker came to him earlier, either at the end of the previous season or earlier in the offseason. He said, hey, I want to be here. I want to stay here. I want a new contract. And Dan Campbell told him, he's like, listen, we understand that. We want to keep you here as well. But we have a couple of other things we have to take care of first, and then we'll get to you. Why do I bring that up? The reason I bring that up is if that's the way that it was with Taylor Decker about how all that information was being, divulged and talked about inside of the building before any of us knew what the Thunder was going on, what makes you think that this hasn't been happening with these two guys? I guarantee you this is not the first time that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have heard that these guys want new deals, that they want to have a better deal. I guarantee you that this has been a conversation that's been going back and forth between these guys for probably now a couple of months. And I guarantee you it was before or at least during the same time when, that's right, the Lions let go of Zadarius Smith. That's right, when everybody was talking about how the Lions needed to make a move to get a top-end edge rusher or when we needed to draft an edge rusher. There's a reason why the Lions have made the moves that they have. It's like, listen, we obviously want the team to be in the best position possible to succeed and to be able to produce out on the field. But we can't bankrupt ourselves by making sure we get all this talent, and then we have guys that aren't happy with their current contract, and then we have to potentially look at them walking out the door. The Lions aren't going to do that. The Lions are, I'm just going to say this, the Lions with Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Chris Spielman, Mike Disner, the whole lot of them, they are way too damn smart for that. They're not going to pull a cowboy move. They're not going to pull a Saints move. They're not going to pull moves where teams are like, hey, you know what? We're still going to go and get everything that we want, and then we're going to try and play hardball with these guys and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to give you what we can, but if it's outside of the realm of what is a reasonable, accommodation for you, well, then you're kind of SOL. You're up, Craps Creek without a paddle. And as far as I'm concerned, this makes sense now why the Lions have not made the moves that some fans have been calling for. Because it's like, hey, when you've got two very important guys that are stating, I want a better deal, well, you can't just ignore that. You have to take care of that. You have to address it. You have to find a reasonable compromise, a reasonable middle ground in order for those guys to be happy and want to be able to continue to play here. And again, that goes back to what the Lions have done with every contract that they've done here. Every time that they have, gotten into contract negotiations with people, they have always stated, listen, we want to reward guys that have clearly earned the right to be paid. Both Frank Ragnow and Alex Anzalone have both earned that right. But what it means is that by earning that right, you've now got to slow down. You have to pump the brakes on everything else and say, listen, we have two guys that we have to take care of before we do anything else. And when you think about it, there's reasoning behind why that's happening. Frank Ragnow watches the news. Alex Anzalone watches the news just like anybody else. They might not listen to it or adhere to it, but they sure as hell listen to it. They sure as hell hear it. Think about it. Alex Anzalone, when he got his new contract back in 2023, it was a 3-year, $18.3 million contract. By current market standards, out of all linebackers, that contract is ranked 46th in total value. It's barely inside of the top 50. And then when you get even more specific, for an inside linebacker, which is what Alex Anzalone is listed as, that contract is only ranked 21st in total value. So for all the other linebackers in his position, he's outside of the top 20. And then, you have to think about this. Who did the Lions give a new contract to this offseason? That's right. They gave a new contract to Derek Barnes. They gave him a 3-year, $24 million contract. Let's just call it for what it is. I'm pretty confident that Alex Anzalone's looking at me like, hey, if Derek is getting a contract for $24 million over 3 years, I believe that I should be getting something similar to that, if not a little bit better. Because Alex Anzalone's been way more productive than Derek Barnes has been here. He's been way more consistent, and he's of higher value to this team right now than Derek Barnes is. And that's nothing against Derek Barnes. That's just the facts of the reality of the situation that we're in. Then you take a look at Frank Ragnow. Freaking the Bears gave that massive contract to the freaking center that they picked up from the freaking Falcons. And I guarantee you this, Frank Ragnow knows his value. He's one of the best centers in the NFL. Currently, his 4-year, $54 million contract extension that he signed in 2021, which was kind of like, an extension of his rookie contract that he had originally, that right there, that contract makes him the 4th highest value of all centers. So yeah, he's in the top 5. But if you take a look at the 3 guys that are in front of him, you could make a pretty solid argument that he should probably be you should be able to make an argument pretty reasonably that he should either be number 1 or number 2. That's just the value that he brings not only to the Lions offensive line, but just the value that he has in comparison to other centers in the NFL. I've said it for a number of years. I'm like, listen, if you want to talk about the best centers in the NFL, you have to have Frank Ragnow in that conversation. That's just how damn good he is. And now it's like, hey, Frank Ragnow recognizes what he's worth. And if he recognizes what he's worth, you have to address that. It's the same thing with Alex Anzalone. You can't just simply say, well, we think what we gave you is fair. You need to play out the rest of your contract the way it is. No, that's not going to work. Because you want to know what that's going to do? That's going to send a signal to not only everybody else on the Lions organization, but everybody outside of the organization, potential free agents that, well, now the Lions are starting to be cheap. Now they're not starting to be fair with their players. And that has been one of the biggest draws that the Lions have had while getting people to come to Detroit is that, hey, they deal fairly with players. They're not going to be stingy. They're going to try and do their best to do right by the player, but at the same time do what's best for them. If you start making a complete change in that operation, you're going to send a massive shockwave to the entirety of the NFL that, well, now that the Lions are being successful, now they're being stingy with their players, maybe it's not such a good idea to go to Detroit anymore. Because if they're not going to take care of 2 of their best players who have a reasonable reason, to want to actually get a new contract, a better contract, then what does that say for me as a potential free agent that's trying to get a contract that I feel that I've earned from playing somewhere else? It's going to instantly shut down negotiations. It's going to make people not want to negotiate with the Lions. So this is one of those situations where the Lions have to balance things very, very carefully. They have to balance by making sure, hey, The guys in our own front office, the guys that are on our team, they're being taken care of. But at the same time, we also need to make sure we have money for taking care of the guys that we've already brought in, the other remaining rookies that we need to sign, all the other guys that we might potentially want to continue to bring back. Because I guarantee you this, the Lions would still probably like to bring back Zadarius Smith. But they can't do that until they take care of the guys that are currently wanting new deals. So again, it's a balancing act. Everybody that just looks at Brad Holmes and say, oh, well, he just doesn't care, he's not paying attention, or he's not doing his job. No, he's doing his job. It's just called that, once again, we don't find out all the details until a couple of months later, and it's like, oh, well, now that makes sense why he couldn't do what he was wanting to do. Or it makes sense why the Lions had to go the route that they had to go, because it's like, hey, when you know you've got these other two guys that want to get new deals, you can't just go out there burning through money like it's literal paper. And I'm not talking like currency paper. I'm talking like, notebook paper. Just throw it in the fire and use it to start something up. You can't do that. You have to be smart with how you approach the salary cap. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in salary cap hell, and the Lions do not want to be there. That's why the Lions have made the moves that they have. They have been very smart about how they've spent their money because they realize that, hey, we got all these contracts that are coming up that we have to negotiate for guys like, Brian Branch, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aiden Hutchinson. But then we've also got guys that feel like they've earned a better deal in Alex Anzalone and Frank Ragnow. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And what it means is that the Lions have to balance, they have to be careful with how they spend that money. They can't just spend it willy-nilly. So yeah, this news here, it makes it very, very clear why the Lions have gone the approach that they have this offseason. Because if they were just to go and do what fans have been wanting to do for the last couple of months, the Lions would have no money, and then we really would be in trouble. Just saying. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this because now this is something that not only, one, makes sense to me, but now me talking to you about it, it also should make sense to you why, hey, this is why the Lions have been doing what they've been doing. It's not because they haven't noticed. It's not because they don't care. There's an actual, genuine reason as to why things have been the way they have. But you guys do with it what you will. Some people might say that maybe I'm being too conservative about it. Some people might say that, you know what, it shouldn't matter. You're in a pursuit of a Super Bowl. You bite the bullet. Well, this is what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have decided to do. That's their decision. That's the way it is. But anyway, folks, I've come to the end of this episode, so I want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Maybe it opened your eyes a little bit more. Maybe it gave you a new perspective. Again, that's what I try to do with every piece of content that I push out. Also hope you have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.